Good evening. It's Arlo Johnson in Vernon, British Columbia, 7 p.m. on November the 2nd. And you can see it's pretty dark outside. Another couple of days, and I guess we got to roll the clock back 1 hour. And I mean, I don't understand this. Everybody I've talked to, and I listen to news and whatever, and I hear them saying, well, darn daylight saving time such a bother and that. But no one does anything about it. They keep doing it. And I guess there's a couple of places don't do it. I think up Peace River or something, they don't do it. And I think there's somewhere in the Kootenays don't do it. But that's the way it is. So, it's November the 2nd. Just got over this humongous pagan deal of Halloween. And, I've sort of known this for a long time. My wife used to make such a big deal out of that with the boys, grandchildren. Making them all kinds of fancy clothes and stuff to wear on Halloween. Ugh. And then, people try to make their children look like witches and goblins and devils. I mean, who is celebrating this? Why are they celebrating this? Who dreamt up this deal? And for people, I guess people are driven to that because people are actually, if it's anti-God or anti-Christ or something, they'll go to that. That's the sad part about it. It's as pagan as you can get. I mean, the Indians must like Halloween, I guess. Oh, ho, 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 ho. Well, so much for that. I can't do a doggone thing about it. But it's a sign. It's a sign of how the people react to things and what they believe in. And it's going to come up to a point where it's not going to be. It certainly won't be practiced in the future. But anyway, not much I can do about that. I'm going to mention now that for some people, if you watch this video or podcast, that you might want to speed it up to 1.2, because I'm sort of a slow talker, and I pause and and this and that. I know, but I don't think I can do it much faster. But it doesn't sound too bad at 1.2. So here we got things going on. We've got things going on in Israel. Now, Israel is a sliver of land in the Middle East. It's a sliver. And I don't know how they managed to have all the stuff they have. They've got, armaments to galore and atomic bombs, and they're exporting agricultural country that they're growing right in the sand and in the desert. You could hide Israel, in one corner of BC practically. Now, Gaza, which I never paid attention to this when I was, say 20 years ago or whatever, is a fairly good chunk of Israel. It takes out a big chunk. And from what I learned here the other day, that this Hamas, this organization that wants to destroy Israel, has got about 500 miles of tunnels in Gaza. A lot of them entrances are in hospitals, houses, and on the end, sort of in Egypt. And I don't know, could be somewhere towards the Mediterranean Sea. I don't know. But 500 miles of tunnels. Huh. And they don't have any like cell phones down there or computers or anything like that. Nothing that can be traced. It's all wired. The communications are all wired. It's just like a phone. You pick up a phone. You can't trace that. So they're pretty smart. You got to give them credit for that. But I think this time it's going to be a lot worse because Israel has made up its mind, regardless of what the world thinks, they're going to try and eliminate this problem. After all, this Hamas group got into Israel and killed 1,200 people at I don't know what some do. 1,200. You know, and not just that, they've been shooting rockets for years into Israel. Now the thing is, if you want to do things, if I for instance decided to harass you to beat heck, whatever, and I'd beat you up and whatever, and then you decide, okay, that's it, I'm going to retaliate against you. And then as soon as you retaliate against me, I say, oh, you're being, overly vicious. Oh, this. And I'm now the victim. And that's the game they play. And they seem to have all kinds of people who will sympathize with them. It's pathetic. And a lot of them are young people. A lot of them are women. Not that there's men too, but that kind of thing is just a mystery that it works like that. And it's sad, it's terrible, but it works that way, and that's what happens. I mean, eventually, in the scheme of things, they're going to be taken over, wiped out, done, whatever. But not yet. Not in this world, as it's running, because, let's face it, people blame God for a lot of things. They blame the right person, they blame Satan. Lucifer. He's allowed to influence people. He's not allowed to do a lot of things, but he is allowed to do that. And he's very, very good at it. And, I'm quite sure that he'll eventually trigger a war, world war. And I don't think that's still a ways off, because there's things that I haven't read it myself, but I've heard people discuss it, and there's certain deals that has to happen first before even the end of the world. But it could be the final end. It says that, they have to have a third temple in Jerusalem, and that they are going to start to sacrifice animals again. The Jews are going to. And all these things, I guess they have to happen first. And then it's going to culminate in a big crashing end. But the thing is, when you watch that going on, and the United States, the way it is, the United States is deteriorating fast, and so is this country. And it's deteriorating fast, and it's going to go. The rate of it is what creeps up on people, it will creep up on everyone, is that, well, it's not that, well, it's a little colder, it's a little more this, it's a little more that. And when it starts to happen, we won't even realize that it's starting to happen faster and faster. Yeah, and well, everybody has said this, as we're like the proverbial frog in a pot. The water heats up slowly and we don't notice it. But it's going to go on, and I sort of fear for the world in a way, but then on the other hand, what's the use to fear for it? That is how it's going to be. The one who's going to control the end of this age is God Almighty and Jesus Christ, and they have already wrote the plan. And that's not going to change, not one iota. The government will say, "Oh, we're going to save this plant." Yes, sir. Even if it kills you. They will never acknowledge that it's God's plan to wind down this age. They won't acknowledge that. I don't think they'll won't acknowledge it even when it's happening right in front of them. But it all has to happen. The whole works has to happen to bring things around to its. Well, Jesus called it birth pangs, and then bango, end comes. Like, for instance, the final war in Israel, and that's when Jesus lands, I guess, on the planet, and they are all lined up to destroy Jerusalem. And it sounds like they'd be from the east, maybe from China, Russia. They talk about that, Gog and Magog, I guess, and I guess that's who they are. 200 million. That's a lot. Couldn't do that a couple hundred years ago. Well, they can sure do it now. 200 million out of China and who knows, India, Middle East and whatever, for 10 million here, 5 million there. And they're all going to be destroyed. Just till well, what does it say? Till the blood runs to the bridle of a horse. How can that be? Can you imagine how much that is? And then that's going to kill, a lot of people. Well, I mean, by that time the world is most likely 9 billion, maybe even more, who knows. So my estimate is, I don't know, I just estimate that when the end of this age happens, it will most likely be after a good 100 billion people have been born and lived on this planet. That's 100 billion. Out of that, God picks and sorts out whoever he's going to put in Jesus' book of life. Now, I've mentioned this before, that what we are kind of missing the idea is that you and I are created to be children of God, sons of God. In the end result, it'll be sons of God. And as such, we'll be heirs of God, inheritors, when it gets to a certain point. Well, that's a very big deal. That means you will be a son of God Almighty. And there are places in the Bible where the angels who, came down and had a meeting or something with humans, and they always said, please don't bow down to us. We are just messengers and workers. And they say that in other places because they are in awe of you and me, because we are potentially sons of God. They are not. They are created beings who live forever and who have jobs to do, messengers, warriors, who knows, by the millions. So that kind of makes you wonder that the human race doesn't realize what their potential is. I mean, the potential we do here is peanuts. That's nothing. You know, the things that human beings on this planet do and plan and do this really doesn't amount to much. It's a temporary deal, and we're allowed to do these things. You know, governments, armies, warring and taking over one another, and producing things, inventing things. The one thing we don't do, we don't live forever. Everyone dies. We have a lifespan of so many years. And I mean, I'm living in a place now where I'm at the tail end of my existence. I'm just here till basically I die. And who knows when that is? I don't. I hope it isn't too quick. I'm supposed to go on a cruise on December the 5th for 11 days. I wouldn't mind if that happened. And then I don't have nothing planned after that. But I still go out to this project that I've been working on for 35, going on to 36 years now. And I do because I'm very proud of it. I mean, it's a little town, size of a town. It's a bigger size than a town down the road 26 miles away. We're bigger than that. I've become bigger. And, people kind of yawn about that who don't realize. But I started that from zero. I found a guy to buy it. It was in receivership. And I promised him we'd build an adult community. And we have. And, it's turned out pretty big. But compared to other things, it's not that big, but it's big. Yeah, it's a good money maker too. And yet, the price out there is cheaper than a trailer park in Vernon. And they have pools and rec centers and pool halls and big RV parks, no charge. And I tell you, a lot of people really do appreciate living there, especially people who travel out of the States a lot. They can't find or compare it to anything there. They don't have anything like this. When I say anything, I mean like a 25-foot driveway, wide. You can park two, three sometimes. You go to these other projects and you may have a little strip out in front that's 6 feet long. The only place you can park is inside your single garage. All of these houses got double garages. They got a lot, they got a garden area, they got trees, whatever. But now that's the old area is the one who uses the water. The others don't use much water at all because they're all dry land landscaping, which is watered by drip irrigation, which is 1/10 of the amount of a regular lawn. But even so, here's the thing. Like they talk about water. At Desert Cove, it's 10 times the amount of regular house water is used for irrigation. It'll go from like 25, 30,000 up to 325,000 gallons a day. Now, what does the city use? They got sprinklers, they got lawns, they got houses. Millions and millions of gallons of water is blown out every day. That's a dumb, dumb thing to do. If the city was smart, they would just say, no, we're not going to do this anymore. You can get artificial turf if you want, green. Otherwise, you better have dry land landscaping, shrubs and flowers and bushes and stuff like that. And you want to have grass, and it's going to really cost you. Because it's just, you can't, the humongous amount of water, like we have to get water from wells. It all has to be pumped and treated every day. 300 and up to 300, it's 320. They'll average between around 300 to 320 a day in July and August. And that's all got to come out of an aquifer that runs underneath Desert Cove. We have 3 wells. They don't produce all that great much, but they're about 150 and 110, and another one 80. We'll pump about 300 gallons a minute. And this aquifer, we can see ponds. There's 1, 2, 3 ponds in the area that are all at the same level. That's from the aquifer. The aquifer has a slight pressure to it, like maybe 10 or 15 pounds. And it brings it up to the surface, so it's about, where Desert Cove is, it's about 50 feet from the surface. The well is usually 125 feet deep. Now, that's a lot of water. And water is something, well, I like talking about water. You know why? Is because we are a water planet. We are water beings. I'm supposed to be close to 70% water. I imagine I am. Eventually, someday, I'm going to be the wet spot on the rug. But here's the thing. It doesn't really mean much until you see where it all is. I've been on, I don't know how many cruises now, but about 4 cruises, I think. This will be about the 5th. But anyway, when I'm out in the ocean, especially out in the Pacific, I sit and look at the water. I sit out on the deck and I just stare at the ocean. And realizing that this goes for like thousands of miles. And in some areas in the Pacific, it's up to 17 miles deep. Where did all this come from? Somebody created this. And there's nobody I know of that could have done that except as God or Jesus Christ. Well, Jesus Christ was the one who created it. He created everything. Can you imagine that? Being a being that could create stuff like that? And just create it. Now, it must come out of a mind of some kind, of wisdom of some kind, knowledge of some kind. And, we really kind of miss the boat when we don't, contemplate or meditate even. Just meditate on the fact that we're living in a world that was created by a being, a great being. and all the stars we see and everything, he says he calls them by name. God is omnipresent. That means that he's a spirit, but he's here, there, and everywhere. He's omnipresent. In other words, he's right around you, above you, below you. If you're in the ocean, he's beneath you, next to you. If you're flying in a plane, he's riding right along. He can most likely know what the thoughts of 8 billion people are at one time. And he most likely knows exactly what 8 billion people are going to do, think, and say. Now, if that's your Father, and if you believe that God is your Father, and that Jesus came to save you from the penalties that this God has for those who break his law. His law is unbreakable, and the penalty for breaking it is death. There is no giveaway on nothing. Yet, it's if you're a tall, a person who is not judgmental really or something, but I mean who is humble enough to realize that God has created everything, then, I think you have a leg up. It's such a, I repeat this again. One more time I'm going to repeat this. People who don't take advantage of this offer that God has made to the world, they are missing the boat so badly. That's just sad. I mean, it's beyond sad. They have as much right to eternal life as you or I do, but they have to acknowledge it and tell God that they believe what he's done, and tell Jesus they believe what he's done. Yeah. I encourage people to really think about that. And I mean, you can't do too much of that. Yes. Well, this is coming to an end. It's been again. It's been a good time talking to you. I don't know what I was going to say there. Blast, I guess they say. Eh? Yeah. But anyway, it's time for the old guy to shut her down. And so this is AJ saying, God bless you, and hopefully we'll meet again.